So the few brief things that I do want to touch on in the intro to this video is, number one, I will be at the next show. I will be attending the Manchester show. If any of you are there, please say hello. I am a little bit socially awkward. I might not hear you if you say hello. I might not comprehend it because I'm a bit weird like that. But do say hello. It means a lot, and I'd love to speak to you about the show. Number two, it's taken a while to get to this show. I apologise. I did want to have this up the other day, but I've had to watch it in chunks. I've had to watch it sporadically due to work commitments, which is a bit frustrating, but we got there in the end. And the final thing I do want to touch on is, if you can hear any sort of rustling, any funny noises, there is a very scared dog under my desk right now who is hiding from the fireworks. So hopefully my voice is loud enough and projecting enough to disguise that. But if you hear rustling, please pray for the cockapoo known as Lexi, and we will get through this trying time. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about a banging little show. Hello and welcome to FTTR. I am Hugh McQuaid, and today we are talking about Progress Wrestling Chapter 172, Werewolves of London. This was the big spooky Halloween spectacular that Progress put on at the Electric Ballroom in Camden. And my god, was this a stacked old card. Cara Noir versus Kenta, Man Like Deriess versus Luke Jacobs, and a big old main event of Lizzy Evo looking to take the Progress Wrestling Women's Championship from Rhio. This was a show that I was really looking forward to. I thought the card looked fantastic. And overall, I would say this show delivered in spades, as this was one of the strongest shows that I've seen all year. It flew by, like it didn't drag whatsoever for a 3.5 hour show. There was all killer, no filler. And it has had one of my favourite matches of the year. Probably not the match that you are expecting, but we will dive into this in just a little bit. One of my favourite matches of the year, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But before we do, please hit subscribe, please like this video, please comment your thoughts down below if you were there, if you've watched the show, if you watched it on Fight, let me know, and I'll try to reply to every single one of them as we dive into this. So the show started with a really good video package, as usual. Jerry Bakewell, amazing job hosting the show. I think he's done a fantastic job since he's sort of been affiliated with Progress. And I want to shout out the commentary team, because it's very rare that I actually do this. So you had Warren Banks on commentary, and you had Ollie Spring as well. I think they're so good together. They are really good, and they make the show so enjoyable to watch, particularly the Sunshine Machine versus G Money and Will Cruz match. I thought on commentary they did a fantastic job, and I very rarely shout out the commentary, so I wanted to put them over in this show because I thought they were fantastic throughout. And the first match was Cara Noir versus Kenta for the Defy World Championship. This was, ever since Cara Noir came back All In Weekend and he had that stare down with Kenta, we all knew this was where it was going. We were going to get this match. I don't know if we expected to get it as soon as we did, but we did. And this was just everything I wanted it to be. This was Cara Noir being awesome, and it was Kenta being a little prick, because that's what he does best. I think he's so underrated in terms of like heels who can draw heat. I think Kenta is supremely underrated. I think he's so good at cheating, at riling up the crowd, at just working as a heel. Going against the incredibly over babyface of Cara Noir, like this was always going to work, and it was always going to be fantastic. And I thought it really was fantastic. You had Kenta sort of dominating the early going to this match and sort of going through the ring rust that Cara's potentially facing. And you had just some really interesting spots with Noir getting the upper hand from like a hot shot where he sort of flung Kenta into the ropes. And then you had the comeback from Cara as he did his capoeira kick, sort of going into that old Cara mode where he has just the most awesome comeback in wrestling. He hits the capoeira kick, a few more strikes, hits the Rude Awakening. It was really awesome. And then a big old striking battle, like the boom and the boom that kind of striking battle that we really, really love, ends in a Madame Guillotine, one of the best moves ever, and it looked bloody fantastic. And then I love the finish for this match. Like, say what you will, I wasn't much for the finish of Cody versus Gunther, of someone getting rolled up, but the finish to this match with Cara getting rolled back and Kenta putting his hands and feet on the rope, that worked for me. I was like, there's got to be a way. I didn't think Cara was going to win this match, and I think this was the best way to go about it, because you got the best of both worlds. You got an amazing match out of this, and the screwy finish leaves the door open for more. Yeah, this worked for me. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. This was just, a really hot way to open the show. Next up, we got my match of the night, because it was Sunshine Machine versus Gene Money, and not Session Moth Martina. She's unable to make it. Will Cruz, and I think Will Cruz is really, really great. He was fantastic in this match. I'll put over Will Cruz for days. He's so unbelievably talented, unbelievably good. But Sunshine Machine came out as Batman and Robin, and I'm going to put this in ways that I was watching this with my partner. She's a big Batman fan. Her words to me, and I kid you not, this is the quote verbatim: "This might be the greatest thing I've seen in wrestling." Because it was so funny. From the crowd interaction, chanting the penguin at Will Cruz, and Will Cruz doing the little penguin shuffle. From Chuck Mambo introducing TK Cooper as Robin. This was just one of the funniest, most exciting, most inside baseball matches that I've seen in a while. And this is where I really, really love the commentary, like the references, the quotes that were in there. This didn't need a story to it. It had a story to it, and that was sort of that TK Cooper didn't feel comfortable being the sidekick of Robin to Chuck Mambo and potentially teasing a split there. It had the Sanity finish at the end, with Sanity's music playing and G Money picking up the win. But I think just in terms of a piece of fan service of pro wrestling, this was done to a T, because you had everything. You had the heel and G Money calling everyone nerds. You had the commentary just having comic book references and Nolan references. You had the high flying action of Chuck Mambo doing his insane stuff while dressed as Batman. This was amazing. This was absolutely amazing, and I'm not ashamed to say that this hilarious, exciting match is one of my favourite matches of the year. Because I think comedy wrestling does have its place. I know people tend to look down on comedy wrestling, but for my money, this was one of the most entertaining, 20 minutes I've had in pro wrestling in the entire year. I could go into spot by spot by spot. You had some awesome spots. Will Cruz being awesome, being strong, and catching TK Cooper in a World's Strongest Slam position, and then hitting a powerbomb on Chuck Mambo as he dives on top of him, and hitting them both at the same time. That just looked amazing. It looked amazing. And then when Sanity's music hit at the end, and G Money and Will Cruz picked up the win, I was like, that's the right decision, because we're getting Sunshine Machine versus Sanity. This furthers that feud, and it furthers heel G Money, which I think is absolute money at the moment. I think he's so unbelievably funny. One of my favourite parts of Progress. And yeah, I can't sing the praises for this match enough. Go out of your way to check this out, regardless of if it's Halloween or not. Go out of your way to check out this match. It's one of my favourite matches of the year. Next up, we got tag team action for the Progress World Tag Team Championships, as the Smoking Aces defended against the Experience of Sky Smithson and L.A. Taylor. This was really, really good. This is the first sort of intergender, if you will. You had Alexis Falcon and Charles Crowley pick up the win, pick up the belts, but in terms of the first all-female tag team champions, the Experience were looking to do that, and they were playing perfectly against the Smoking Aces, who are incredibly dislikable. So good in the ring, but they are such good heels. I love them in Dominatus Regnum. They were so good. And yeah, this was really, really good. This was mainly built around sort of the power of LA Taylor. You had Sky Smithston working as the underdog babyface and making the tag to LA Taylor, and LA Taylor getting some great hot tags. But yeah, it was just sort of the slippery bastards that are the Smoking Aces coming out on top here. You had one of the craziest spots of the year when Sky did a Hurricane Rana from the top rope on one of the Smoking Aces, and they got caught in a Canadian Destroyer on the other one. It is insane, and you need to check out that spot if it's available on YouTube. But yeah, the Smoking Aces picked up the win, which I think is the right decision. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And yeah, I hope we build to the experience eventually winning those belts, because I think that's a really cool story to tell. And yeah, I have no complaints with this. This was really, really good. Then we capped off the first half of the show with the Progress Men's World Championship as Luke Jacobs defended against Man Like Deriess. This was a fucking banger. This was an absolute banger. Now, I will say, I wasn't necessarily feeling this at the beginning. I was like, okay, this might be a little bit formulaic. I really love the story that they've told and the promos they've had back and forth. I think this Deriess Jacobs story is really, really good, and I'm glad to see it continue. But I'd say for the first few minutes of this match, I wasn't necessarily feeling it. But by the end, oh my God, this turned into just one of the best matches ever. Because it did. It's Luke Jacobs and Man Like Deriess. I don't know why I ever doubted myself. But it just got to another level. And particularly when my favourite thing in wrestling is a kick out at one. I goddamn love a kick out of one. And when Deriess did the kick out of one after taking some brutal punishment from Luke Jacobs, I leapt out of my seat. I was like, this is fucking awesome. This is absolutely awesome. And then it kept going. He managed to hit the insane kip-up cutter that he does. And I was like, okay, Deriess, there's a chance. There's a chance. There's a slim chance. Not knocking you, Deriess, but there's a slim chance he could beat Jacobs here. And then you had the finish where it looked like Deriess has got it won. He hits the 450 on Luke, and a masked man pulls him out of the ring. Pulls the ref out of the ring, should I say. And unveils himself to be Ethan Allen. The Young Guns reunited in Progress. He helps Luke pick up the win. Yeah, I think it was a great finish. I think it was a really, really good finish that sort of came from out of nowhere, because you never really clock. I don't know when he comes in and how it's shot. Maybe if you were there, you could see it better, but I don't know. He just sort of appears and then yanks him straight out of the ring, and I was like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, they win. Luke Jacobs wins. Right decision. Cuts promo after, talking about how Drilla Maloney's left Deriess, how Leon Slater's left Deriess, and how he's by himself. And that sets up perfectly, because it's been announced now, a tag team match for Manchester, which is Boisterous Behaviour taking on the Young Guns. I think that's going to be fucking awesome. And I think this was a fucking awesome match. This was really, really good, and capped off the top half of the show, like, yeah, in a fantastic way. The action did not stop there, because then we got Zazuya versus RKJ versus Mike D versus Connor Mills in a four-way for pretty much number one contendership for Luke Jacobs' title. And this was a banger of a four-way. This was absolutely insane. From as soon as it got underway, everyone was doing crazy shit. Mike D just being too fast for a man that size, too fast that it's scary. Connor Mills doing some really awesome stuff, like catching Zazuya with a elbow as he sort of did a springboard to the outside. That just looked awesome. I love Connor Mills. I think he's so underrated. Zazuya was just running wild. I love his little shoulder tackles that he does in the corner where he like scrapes his knees on the floor. That looked awesome. And then you had RKJ just being RKJ and killing people left, right and centre. And he ultimately picked up the win here. He hit the Samoan driver on, I believe it was Zazuya, for the 1, 2, 3, and then he laid claim to the Progress World Championship. They had that match at Strong Style, so at some point in the near future, probably at Vendetta maybe, it'll be RKJ versus Luke Jacobs for that Progress title again, and that is going to be awesome. So I was super impressed with this match. There were too many spots to sort of run down. I've written some of them down on my phone, like Mike D with Poison Ranas. You had Ricky catching Zazuya with a massive knee strike before hitting that Samoan driver, which really, really looked ruthless. Yeah, it was awesome. An awesome, awesome four-way, and just the best kind of action. Best kind of wrestling action, this. Then for the Proteus Championship, Simon Miller took on Paul Robinson. Can I say that this was the best match ever? No, I can't. I can't say this was amazing. This did exactly what it needed to do, and that was shock the crowd, because the rules for Paul Robinson's Proteus Championship are knockout or submission, and this was built around potentially knocking out Simon Miller. Potentially knocking out Simon Miller with brutal foot stomps to the back of the head. And that is the way this match went. The tension and the drama when it looked like Simon Miller's hand was going to fall after each of those curb stomps was insane. Because I don't think a single person in that building thought Simon was winning. And to Progress's credit, to Simon's credit, and to Paul Robinson's credit, they did an amazing job of building this to the point where it was an ups and downs on a chair, and Simon Miller won the Proteus Championship. Everyone in the Electric Ballroom went wild, slamming their hands on the mat for him as Simon raised the title high. This was incredible stuff. Like, just as a feel-good moment to see Simon Miller win, it was heartwarming, absolutely heartwarming for someone who's like followed Simon since, I don't know, like the What Culture day. We're still with What Culture, but like the way back What Culture days. It's just like it hits home, and this was really fantastic. I can't wait to see what his stipulation for the Proteus Championship is going to be, but I'm excited. I'm excited for a reign of Simon Miller, which feels insanely cool to say. Then we got tag team action as Subculture, Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster took on Tate Mayfairs and Eddie Dennis. It's so good to see Subculture in a Progress Wrestling ring. It is awesome to see Mark Andrews face off against Eddie Dennis and their history that they have. And this was really built around that. This was built around Eddie Dennis not wanting to fight Mark Andrews. And I thought that was an interesting story route to tell, considering this uneven friendship with Eddie Dennis and Tate Mayfairs. And I think it was an interesting route, and it was told really well in the ring, of sort of Eddie Dennis tagging out whenever Mark Andrews was in the ring, and Mark Andrews sort of being like, come on, you know, this is still a wrestling match, and rolling him up at different points, particularly at the opening. And then you have Flash Morgan Webster and Tate Mayfair sort of being the ones on the outside of this friendship. I thought it was a really interesting way to play it off, and ultimately Subculture picked up the win with a shooting star press from Mark Andrews onto Eddie Dennis after some miscommunication from Tate Mayfairs and Eddie Dennis. I thought this was really, really good. I don't think it was the strongest match on the show, but for what it accomplished and sort of progressed in the Tate Mayfairs Eddie Dennis story, I'm here for it. I think it's really, really good, and I want to see more of Subculture. We're getting Subculture taking on the Smoking Aces, which I think is going to be really good in Manchester. So yeah, I thought this was really, really good. Not best match ever, but it told an interesting story, and I'm excited to see where these characters go from here. And then we got the main event, which was Lizzy Evo taking on Rhio for the Progress Women's Championship in what was an awesome main event. One of the best women's matches of the year, and an insanely awesome street fight. This was everything we wanted it to be, because I actually think this has been quite a subtle and under the radar story in terms of some of the bigger stories that are going on involving Progress, like the Proteus Championship, like the tag titles, and like the main event, the main men's picture. This has sort of flown under the radar, but they've been bubbling. Lizzy Evo and Rhio have been bubbling away under the surface, and they pulled out everything in this main event and completely delivered. This was an absolutely brutal, innovative, and just ruthless match that really capped off their feud. You started with Rhio going in, taking down Lizzy Evo and just gunning for her, and then Lizzy Evo sort of making the comeback, strike exchanges galore in this match, on the apron, in the ring. It was awesome. And then teasing the package pile driver from both women on the apron, and that was sort of built around that. You had an insane double down sequence where they were nailing each other in the ring. It'd be super kick from Lizzy Evo into an elbow strike from Rhio into a pump kick from Lizzy Evo, back and forth into this insane double down. Looked awesome. And then you got Rhio eventually getting the package pile driver on the apron to Lizzy Evo. Then you had a package pile driver through a table from the apron, which looked gnarly. That looked insane for a kick out at 2 from Lizzy Evo. And I was like, oh my God, what a near fall. Like, what a near fall. I'm all about protecting moves, but when you've done it so well, like, yeah, let Lizzy Evo kick out of that, because it looked amazing. And then you had just an awesome ending where the crowd was split. The crowd were completely split throughout this, and chanting Lizzie's our champion, Rio's our champion, and then she just picked up the win. Rhio locked in a Dragon Sleeper and picked up the win. Absolutely fantastic match. I loved this. This was one of my favourite matches of the year, and it capped off what I thought was an awesome show. Like a really, really good show. And yeah, I have no issues with this. This was awesome. And I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Overall, I'd give this probably like 4.5 out of 5. Not perfect, but so close to getting there. So yes, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll try and reply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.